Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first annual Rise Up Kingston annual meeting. My name is Quay Smith. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the chair of the Rise Up Kingston board.
And I am Callie Jane. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the advocacy and campaigns director at Rise Up Kingston.
Thank you all so much for spending your Saturday with us at Rise Up Kingston.
Yeah. So this event is going to be interpreted. So before we get started, I just wanted to share a message on behalf of the Spanish language interpreters. Veronica Martinez, Eugenia Cabrera, and Adriana Perecci are excited to be making this event multilingual for the community. They will be interpreting into Spanish and are using this opportunity for interpreter training so we can have a future in which we have more and more trained interpreters in our city and region. And since they are interpreting into a conference call line and cannot speak directly into this StreamYard space, we'd like to remind all speakers today to please take breaths and speak at a calm pace, especially when reading something. We also want to center the community agreement of one mic, so the interpreters don't have to choose which voice to amplify, so Spanish speakers can access what everybody says. We want to acknowledge that this is English first. English will be the only language spoken out loud, and our Facebook live chat is not being translated into Spanish. We are ready to receive questions in Spanish in the Facebook live chat. We encourage folks listening in Spanish to send questions through there. To hear interpretation into Spanish, please call 712-770-5259. The code is 864863. And then you can keep watching Facebook Live for the video. So thank you, interpreters. So March signifies the 3-year anniversary of Rise Up Kingston, of our formation. And if you've been around in our meetings and gatherings over the past few years, you know what's been up in our group, but not always what's been happening all over the organization. And if you're just learning about Rise Up, you might not know anything about us. So we wanted to create a space for radical transparency for the whole community about how we started, what we've done, and what we're doing.
So over the next hour and a half, you're going to hear from workers and members of Rise Up Kingston about our mission, vision, and values, and how we live those out both internally and externally. You'll hear about campaigns that we've won and how you can get more deeply involved with the work that's happening. We wish we could be in person with all of you, and you can be in person with all of us, but since we can't, use the Facebook comment thread to show your support, ask questions, and talk to each other. We can pretend we're all together.
Yeah. So I want to read the Land Acknowledgement. And this is just one small statement, but important to remember that Kingston sits on the ancestral and current lands of the Lenape and Mohican people. And we pay respect to their elders, past and present, and recognize this as their land. All right. So I guess I'm going to jump in. Cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are. And to do that, I'm going to jump right into our mission, vision, and values. So the mission, vision, and values was developed in living rooms, coffee shops, and diners across the city, engaging a lot of voices to not just put on our homepage, but to really guide our work and shape all of our decisions. And these words are those that we go back to regularly. So our mission statement says Rise Up is a grassroots organization led by those experiencing racism, classism, and gender oppression on a daily basis. We organize to win with our collective power, a Kingston economy that meets all of our social and environmental needs. And we felt it was important in our mission statement to not just talk about what we were doing, but also talk about how we were doing it through grassroots community organizing to change the dynamics of power. And our vision says that we envision a community where we are safe, where our shared social and environmental needs are met, and where we have the power, dignity, and self-determination to decide how. And so our values are clear. We can go to the next slide. Our values really say that we believe that there are enough resources for everyone, and that together we fight for solutions that recognize and utilize our interdependence. And we believe that those closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. And by following the leadership of those who are most impacted by oppression, we ensure that all of our solutions will make meaningful and enduring changes. And we believe that the strongest resistance to racialized capitalism comes when groups from all class and race backgrounds show up together in solidarity under the leadership of those most oppressed. We recognize oppression. We can go to the next slide. Sorry. We believe that those most impacted by oppression should have control of the systems and solutions meant to serve us. The next one I already read. We recognize oppression and the destruction of our environment as intertwined problems such that we cannot address one without considering the impact of the other. So we felt that was really important to make sure that if you haven't seen those, to really understand what our mission is, what our vision is, what our values are here at Rise Up. So I want to talk a little bit about history, and we're going to go through some of this quickly, but we pulled out some of the most important things that we feel have happened along the way. And it's definitely been a wild 3 years. And many of you have been here along for the ride, and many of you have joined along the way. And many of you are still trying to figure out how to get involved. So we're going to give all that information today. And I guess we'll just start on the first slide with Rise Up Kingston was founded in March of 2018 with a team of people who were committed to ending police brutality and trying to figure out how to start a nonprofit that was non-hierarchical. And when we began, we had a first donation from a local community member who really just believed in our work. And we tried to figure out the best way to deposit it. And we started off as a fiscally sponsored organization, thanks to the Good Work Institute. And that allowed us to start applying for grants and hiring staff. And the first staff came on in May. And this is when we would typically say that the police accountability campaign began. Though the work had been happening for a very long time, this is when we started to really develop real strategy to end police brutality in our community. And that's when our criminal justice circle was formed. Although we called them committees back then, you'll hear more about circles later. We were using the library for public meetings and spent months going through the Midwest Academy strategy chart to develop the campaign. And Lisa's going to talk more about that later. But through our door knocking around police accountability, that's where we heard from the community that we needed to work on housing justice. So then in September of that year, we formed our housing justice circle. And we were deep in developing and implementing 2 campaigns that we were building with the community. And with the street team and door knocking and phone banking teams, we were doing a lot of base building in the community, talking to folks, encouraging folks to attend actions and attend events and take action at the local and state level. So going on to the next slide, in October of 2019, that's when we formed a HR circle, human resources. We really realized that we needed to put as much effort into our organization as we did organizing. And by not putting that focus in, we weren't actually living up to our values as an organization. So we started making the transition to a worker self-directed nonprofit, which you'll hear more about in a bit as well. And it wasn't until January of last year that we became our very own 501c3. So that was really exciting for us. And I guess we'll go to the next slide and talk about what happened in March, although we all know what happened in March of last year. Our last in-person meeting was the Housing Justice Circle on a Wednesday night of the week before the shutdown, but we definitely did not shut down. The first Friday that schools were closed, we joined together with a lot of local organizations to build what is now the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative, which delivered about 175 meals on its first day and almost 3,000 at its peak. Deliveries are still happening, and that group also transitioned into some systems change work, which you'll hear about later. We also got involved with Kingston Resilience, which spun out into the Kingston Economic Justice Group, Kingston Mutual Aid Network, and Block Collective, which stands for Black and Brown Liberation of Kingston, and we haven't stopped. In summer of 2020, we won our police accountability campaign and began building out our Defund the Police campaign. So we wanted you to know a little bit about what we've done, who we are, and what we stand for. And now I guess we'll talk a little bit about who we actually are, who as humans we are. And I'm excited that you are going to get to meet all these folks today if you haven't met them already. So there's 5 of us workers here at Rise Up Kingston. You're going to meet everyone soon, and you can read all their bios on our website. But I'll just give you the quick rundown. I am Callie. I am the Advocacy and Campaigns Director. You might have known me as the Executive Director for a while, but that didn't align with our structure, so we changed it along the way. Andriana Natsoulis joined us in July as the Operations Director. Tenora Locke joined us as the Leadership Development Director in December. Tyler Epps joined us as the Food Justice Coordinator in December. And Lisa Royer, who's a founding member, but joined us again as the Criminal Justice Organizer in January. So those are us 5 workers, and you'll get to hear from everyone today. And quickly, I'll just talk about our board members, and you're going to meet a few of them. Well, you met Quay already. Quay Smith is our board chair. Sean Petway and Yolanda Knox are board members as well. You'll meet Meg in a bit, who is our treasurer, and Justin's on today as well as our secretary. So those are some of the folks that, really have just been behind the scenes supporting the how do we build an organization aspect of Rise Up. So hope that made things a little clearer for you about Rise Up. I am going to pass this over to Lisa, who's going to talk a little bit more about what we've done.
Thanks, Callie. So exciting talking about the past 3 years. So let's talk a little bit about what we've done. As a community, we've showed up on many issues together. We've come together and found solutions for a lot of the issues our community's facing. One of the campaigns that we're most proud of, and was by far the longest campaign that we've worked on so far, as you can see on this timeline that's on your screen. So I want to remind everybody that it's 2021 because we've been shut in for the past year. And this timeline begins in March of 2018. So I'm just going to read through it. In March 2018, this is the timeline for the police accountability legislation campaign that was built by Rise Up Kingston and the community. So in March 2018, we submitted a letter to the Common Council citing the concerns that we had over the KPD contract. The letter included suggested changes to move us towards greater police accountability here in Kingston. In July of 2018, we received support from the following groups for suggested changes to the KPD contract: Black Lives Matter Hudson Valley, Citizen Action of New York, LGBTQ Community for Racial Justice. In August of 2018, the Common Council cites arbitration with the police union as a barrier for instituting our suggested changes. In November 2018, we hold Re-envisioning the Police Commission open sessions and continue our conversation with members of the Laws and Rules Committee. We developed police accountability platform and a community platform. Following community input, we adjust our platform and maintain the mayor's role on the police commission. In March of 2019, we hold a live stream rally. We submit a sign-on letter of support to the Common Council members, and that includes the names of 12 organizations and community leaders. In April 2019, we meet with the Common Council to discuss turning our platform into legislation. We identify the city of Rochester as a model. In June of 2019, Common Council member Rennie Scott Childress presents a legislation proposal that is a lot shorter than our initial set of suggested changes. It's weaker than the City of Rochester's platform, and it does not include all of our demands. In July of 2019, we draft our own legislation in response. It was modeled on the City of Rochester's legislation and the community platform. The Common Council backtracks on their commitment to submit this legislation to Laws and Rules for consideration, citing arbitration with the police union and the 1967 Taylor Law. In September 2019, this was a long journey. We engaged the NYCLU and report our findings to the Common Council. Our research revealed the irrelevance of the Taylor Law and that discipline should have never been included in the police union contracts here in Kingston. In October 2019, we held a rally at City Hall and we presented our legislation to the Laws and Rules Committee. They commit to bring the legislation to a third-party lawyer for review. The NYCLU submits a letter of support to the committee. However, the Laws and Rules Committee later backtracks again on their commitment to consider the legislation, citing time constraints and arbitration with the police union. So in November, we received input from a third-party lawyer to address the committee's concerns. We adjust the legislation accordingly, and 2 members of the Laws and Rules Committee and the mayor publicly announced that they support the changes of the police commission. In January, we were hoping with community support that we would aim to pass through Laws and Rules Committee and the Common Council. And at the end of January, we were hoping to hold an awareness raising public forum. We all know in March, like Callie said, the world shut down and things didn't go the way that they seemed, that we thought that they were gonna go. So you can go to the next screen, the next slide. So I'm just gonna walk you through this a little bit, how we did this. Here you'll see that we had bi-weekly criminal justice meetings with impacted members of our community, where we used the Midwest Academy organizing approach. We met and we built strategy together, and this is the space where we wrote the legislation together. You can go to the next slide. We showed up strong together and we filled City Hall, and we, with the power of the people, we even spoke about our ideas and our legislation in Albany. And this is Sean Petway, who's on our board, speaking in Albany. You can go to the next slide. And this is where they backtracked too many times, and we, as a community, submitted the legislation ourselves. So you can go to the next slide. We even delivered them Valentines and asked them to pass the police accountability legislation. And then when George Floyd was murdered, the whole country was applying pressure to elected officials and for police accountability. And our elected officials started to take us a little bit more serious too. And all of a sudden, our platform and our legislation that we wrote 3 years ago, started working on and putting pressure on 3 years ago, it made sense to them now. And all of a sudden, they believed in what the people were demanding for the past 3 years. So you can go to the next video.
And so, like everyone said, we have to hold them accountable on another level, right? We need real police accountability in Kingston. We need real police accountability in Ulster County. We need real police accountability in all of New York State. And we won't be quiet until we get it. The community came together over the past 3 years and put together legislation that the Kingston Common Council has. And we're not sure where we're at with them right now with it, right? And so any place that you see an opportunity to put pressure on your local officials about the Rise Up Kingston Police Accountability Platform, just know that the community came together and worked on that legislation. That's the legislation the people built, and we won't accept anything else.
You could play the next video also. So that last video was a video of Mayor Noble and Chief Tinty walking in the rally that we had for George Floyd's murder, and where the community was putting pressure on them for the police accountability legislation. And you can go to the next slide. Yeah, that one. And as you can see here, in July of 2020, the Kingston Common Council unanimously adopted our legislation, which is amazing, right? And we see that when we are following the lead of those most impacted, and the people really show up, that we can win, right? And so Rise Up Kingston's had many other big and small wins for the people. We know that those closest to the problems have the answers to the problems, and they just need a seat at the table. So we built our own table, and here's a video of some more of our wins. You can go to the
Well, Lisa, thank you. That was so powerful and inspiring. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how we all work together, how we are able to make all of what you've just heard happen. So you'll be hearing a little bit first from me and Meg. Meg is our treasurer. And first of all, Rise Up Kingston operates within this idea of radical transparency. And we can go on to the next slide here. So yes, so you're going to hear about finances and abundance, our financial abundance. Going on to the next slide, specifically the way that Rise Up Kingston works is through radical transparency. What does radical transparency mean? You heard Callie mention it at the beginning. And radical transparency is really about creating a culture that is direct, honest, shares the inner details of what we're doing and our strategy, and we're transparent all the way through. So we're transparent with our budget development, where our money comes from, where it goes, how we work internally, how we organize. So we apply this radical transparency to our budget process, which I'll tell you a little bit about more later. But to honor this radical transparency, Meg is going to tell you a bit about our history around money, our finances, and I'm actually just going to let her take it from here rather than summarize. Meg, I think you might be on mute.
There I am. Thanks, Andriana. I want to start out by saying that the first little bit of this is some nitty-gritty information that is maybe of interest or not of interest to folks, but in the interest of radical transparency, I want to be very clear that we're always happy to share more information, nitty-gritty information, more abstract information. Questions are always welcome. So on the back end of finances here at Rise Up Kingston, we use QuickBooks to manage our financial data, which is kind of an industry standard. We use Gusto as a payroll platform, and we bank at Ulster Savings. Our fiscal year is a calendar year. Our financial statements are submitted to our board for review on a monthly basis. Our finances are reviewed on an annual basis by a CPA firm. And we are audited on an annual basis as well. Going forward, we will be. That is sort of the baseline structure of how we manage information. I work professionally as a nonprofit accountant, and so bring that skill set to this work. But I'm also always reaching out to other people for information and oversight to make sure that we are proceeding with all best practices on the finance side of things. A little bit about our history financially. Callie mentioned some of this at the beginning. We began as a fiscally sponsored project of the Good Work Institute with our funding from a community member, as well as some initial institutional grants from the Novo Foundation and the North Star Fund. As we moved into our first year of operations, we broadened our scope of funding to a whole range of progressive foundation donors. To name a few, Sparkplug Foundation, Jesse Smith Noyes, the Ben & Jerry's Foundation, the Ms. Foundation. But we really focused our fundraising efforts heavily on small donations from individuals and businesses in our community for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that it helps everyone have a ownership and stakeholdership in what we're doing. Going forward into 2021, we have budgeted expenses of just over $500,000 for the year. And we have a breakdown expense-wise of about 77% personnel expenses and 23% operational and programming expenses, which is skewed from what we would ideally have it be because of the pandemic and the restrictions that that's placed on our operations. But it is representative of the fact that we have an organizational commitment to good wages and robust benefits for our entire staff. We are continuing to focus heavily on grassroots fundraising, small donor fundraising, and a very participatory and open budget formation process. And that's something that Andrea is going to tell you a little bit more about right now.
Thanks, Meg. So we have a participatory community input budget process because we want to hear from the community what the important issues are, what our priorities are. As one of our values is closest to the problem or closest to the solution. So that includes where we're spending the money. So part of this participatory community input is sending out a survey. This year for 2021, when we develop our 2022 budget, we'll be sending that survey out to our members, to the circle members, to Rise Up Kingston, a survey in about August or September to inform us of what our budget should be. So in that is going to include questions like, what is the most radical thing that Rise Up Kingston can do to achieve liberation and justice in Kingston? A question may be, would it be useful if Rise Up Kingston owned land or a house? And just really try to get some true input so that we're able to develop a budget, develop how we're going to spend the money on what the community needs the most. So once we get that information in, we make a few draft budgets. So we'll do a first draft budget, then we'll send it to both the stewardship and board circles, both of which you'll hear about later. And we'll get feedback from them. Then we'll do another budget, and then we will present it back again. Stewardship and board will approve it, and then we will make it public for the community to see, for the Rise Up Kingston membership to see. And so that's a pretty, quick overview of the budget process. So one of the questions is, okay, we have this budget. We have all this money that we want to spend, all this incredible stuff that we want to do, but how are we raising the money? And so if we can go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about our abundance plan. So as Callie said, we operate in circles, and we have an abundance circle. And the abundance circle is what you may know of as a fundraising committee. But the abundance circle is primarily comprised of privileged people in the community who is able to provide their experience and their knowledge to raise the money that the community has asked us to raise. And so within our abundance plan, we primarily have 4 different areas of focus. We have our little sub-circles or teams who work on these 4 areas. So the Grassroots Fund Drive is a way to engage people in asking for money, tapping into their networks. We will be holding our Grassroots Fund Drive this June 15th to June 29th. And if you want to be part of that, if you want to be a team member, please reach out to us. We're still recruiting team members. Every little dollar counts. Every single dollar counts. And through Grassroots fundraising, we're able to bring in as much money from across multiple people so that we're not beholden to just one large donor, one large foundation. So it's a really important way to raise money from across the community and be able to be true to our values without being told what to work on. And it's fun to be involved, to get on the phone, to be social media, getting your friends to give a little bit of money. So that's coming up in June. We also have an individual donors team, and the Grassroots Fund, just to let you know, our goal this year is $30,000. Half of that will be hopefully business matching. We'll see. So we also have an individual donors team. Our individual donors team focuses on getting some of the bigger dollars from individuals. And we have a goal this year of $51,000. And we'll also be, that even includes the $20 recurring or $10 recurring that people sign up to on our website. And then we have a foundations team. And the foundations team writes those proposals to grants, writes these letters of inquiries to grants. to foundations, asking them to provide us with grant money. We have a $200,000 goal for new grant money coming in from foundations. We're also in the process of creating funding filters. We're close, but not there yet. But our funding filters are created to make sure that we're not reaching out to a foundation or a business that does not agree with our mission, vision, and values. And so we're developing a process to be sure that those who are giving us money, foundations, businesses primarily, are aligned with our mission, vision, and values. And then the last part of the abundance plan, our abundance team, is the business team, business subcircle. And that one's a little bit slow going. We're just starting to get it going with the Grassroots Fund Drive and identifying these business matchers. And our business team will be reaching out to businesses in the area and ask them to support Rise Up Kingston. We already have had some businesses reach out to us, and we do have some who support us on a regular basis. If you're a business out there, also get in touch with us, and we'd be really happy to have a conversation. So, for example, Arrowwood Farms last year, on their proceeds from Monday nights came to Rise Up Kingston. Sunflower Market in June is going to be the rounding up. When you go into Sunflower Market, if you round up to the closest dollar, that difference for the June month will be coming to Rise Up Kingston. So we have some connections with businesses, but we're really looking to improve that. And we have not set a goal because this is a newer concerted outreach that we haven't got together yet. And I think that is it around our finances and abundance. And we are going to kick it off to Tyler. And Tyler's going to tell you more about Rise Up Kingston. Thank you.
What's up, y'all? First of all, I just want to say that it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with everyone, both working with Rise Up and the community that we're working for. I am going to talk about something that I'd never heard of before getting involved with the organization, and that's the fact that Rise Up is a worker self-directed nonprofit. Next slide, please. The way we work should model the communities we are working to build. Next slide, please. The worker self-directed nonprofit. In a worker self-directed nonprofit, all workers have the power to influence the realms and programs in which they work, the conditions of their workplace, their own career paths, and the direction of the organization as a whole. And this has been, so far in my experience, revolutionary, empowering as a worker, as an individual, to be able to serve the community in a way that also serves us individuals as workers. Next slide, please. So Rise Up is structured a bit different than other orgs. As a worker self-directed nonprofit, we're intentionally operating differently than hierarchical organized businesses and nonprofits. Next slide, please. Rather than having a board that oversees an executive director who sits at the top of the organization's pyramid, Rise Up is organized into autonomous circles. This is where our decision-making happens and how we stay accountable to our community's needs. Now we'll dive in a little deeper how we organize ourselves, and tomorrow we'll talk about our circles.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Tyler. All right, so I'm going to explain our circles a little bit. So at Rise Up Kingston, we believe that the folks who are most affected by injustice should be the ones that are leading the movement for liberation. So our circles are made up of dedicated community members who shape our decision-making process and our programming. So what are circles? A circle is similar to a working group or a committee. We use the term circle to reflect the world that we envision. So it's a group of people that gather to support Rise Up Kingston's work. And all members of a circle have equal footing and inclusion. And I'm going to try to slow down, my bad, Tanasha. So often the input and decision-making process moves in a circle from one person to the next, which we call circle process. Each circle has a certain general function to play in Rise Up, and we call that its purpose. Each circle has specific things that everyone expects it to do, and we call those accountabilities. It also has some things that it gets to have final say over, and we call those domains. And you can go to the next slide. So right now we have 8 circles, and there's 2 types of circle. So first is a program circle, and those are grassroots and community-driven spaces that focus on advancing specific areas of work. And those circles include criminal justice, housing justice, and leadership development. And then we have support circles, which support the programmatic work, and the program circles. And those circles include the abundance circle, community outreach, and communications and stewardship, and also the board circle. So we'll share more about these circles and what they're doing a little bit later on when we talk about how folks can get involved. But for now, I'm going to focus on the types of leadership that our circles bring to Rise Up's work. And we can go to the next slide. All right, so there's 5 types of leadership. We can go on to the next slide. So first we have vision and priority setting. This is the work of determining what impact RUK should be having on Kingston. The community members provide this direction with the support of staff who act to help the community define and articulate its vision and priorities. The most formal example of this is the Stewardship Circle, and there's more on that coming up. But other examples include circle members making decision and feedback from community surveys. So next one, we can go to the next slide, is strategic development and tactical coordination. And this is the work of determining the best course of action to accomplish priorities and coordinating people's activities in alignment with that course. This leadership is primarily provided by the staff, and sometimes it's supplemented by the board or highly invested circle members. And we can go on to the next slide. So next we have leadership development. This is actually my area. So this is the work of increasing community members' capacity to cultivate and exercise personal and collective power. This leadership is provided by the staff and highly invested circle members as well. We can go on to the next slide. Organizational resilience is the work of ensuring that RUK is healthy and constantly learning on the terrain of finances, internal operations, culture, and relationships. This leadership is provided by staff and the board. And then you can go to the next slide. Tactical implementation is the work of carrying out activities associated with campaigns and initiatives, and it's provided primarily by community members and supplemented by staff. All right, so constituencies. These are members, workers, board, stewards. So members, the role of the member is to create vision, set priority, and execute tasks that push forward priorities. The role of the staff is to help the community articulate its vision and priorities, to determine what activities will advance those priorities, to support community members to perform those activities, and create pathways for community members to develop their leadership capacities. In this context, leadership capacities means the ability to take on more complex tasks, think strategically, and navigate complex political terrain. All right, so the role of the board is to maintain a healthy and ever-evolving container in which the staff and community can operate. This means creating internal policies and processes to keep RUK funded and operational. And lastly, the stewards. The role of RUK stewards is to make big picture, strategic, political, and resource allocation decisions. And now I'm going to pass it on to Andriana and Quay.
Thanks, Tenora. So on the next slide now, we'll talk about how you can get involved. How can you become a member? And what does it mean more to be a member? So we have 3 tiers of community membership, and each tier has a different role and different expectations. So Quay and I are going to give you a description of what these are.
Thanks, Andriana. So circle members. Circle members are affiliated with specific circles who take discrete tasks associated with the circles. Circle members also have an equal voice in any decision that the circle makes if they attend that specific circle. Circle members are expected to do what they say they will do, but they are not expected to be highly responsive or to necessarily be involved in the circle long term.
And then we have circle advisors. And again, our circle advisors are affiliated with specific circles. And these are folks who might not be able to take on much labor associated with this circle. They may not be able to regularly attend meetings, but they really have important expertise to contribute to that circle. So these advisors are consulted about key decisions that are being made within the circle, and they are expected to communicate pretty regularly if they're contacted to be able to give any kind of advice or insight to the activities of the circle work, even if they're not participating on a regular constant basis.
And circle anchors take on additional responsibility and leadership within the different circles. Circle anchors do things like organize and facilitate circle meetings, coordinate small groups of people to do tasks, speak publicly, etc. Circle anchors are expected to be at most meetings and to also be responsive to electronic communication. A circle cannot make a key decision without the consent of all of its anchors.
Yeah, and now how do you join? How do you join a circle? First of all, you have one-on-one meetings with either one of the rec workers or a leader in a circle, one of the anchors, and you are able to that way get a little bit more information about what the circle does, what you are interested in, what your skills are, and the match, if you match really well with the circle. And then we ask you to review a membership packet that we provide you. And then we ask you to fill out a membership form. And in the membership form is just a lot of basic information like your name, contact information, pronouns, also contact information for emergencies, and which circle you're interested in joining. And then also some fun questions like, what are your hobbies? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite music? And then once we get that membership form in and processed, you will be invited to attend an orientation. And then you're in a circle and you can contribute to this amazing work.
Awesome. So now we're going to move on to our members in each circle and where they're at with their work. We're going to start with Lisa, and she's going to be talking about criminal justice. Lisa, you're on mute.
Thank you. Talking into the air. Appreciate you. Thank you, y'all. So the purpose of the Criminal Justice Circle is to build and direct community power to dismantle the existing criminal justice system and to build a new one. So to get involved with the Criminal Justice Circle, you can contact me at lisa@riseupkingston.org. And some of the sub-circles that the Criminal Justice Circle have right now are our statewide work circle, where we're focusing on coalition work with Justice Roadmap and Decarcerate Hudson Valley. Another subcircle that we have in the criminal justice circle is we're creating a community de-escalation team as an alternative to the police. Many of you may have came to the Cahoots training that we had the other night, or heard about it. And if you'd like more information about how we plan to develop that with the community, just reach out. I'd be happy to go over it with you. Another subcircle we have is our local defund the police subcircle, where we're working on a strategy to move 22% of the Kingston police budget to investing in the community. We also have a street team, and the street team brings education and opportunities out into the street by flyering, door knocking, and tabling at events. We're working on bringing a few more subcircles in, but we should probably go to the housing justice one now. I think that's Callie.
Hey, yeah. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the other circles. The housing justice circle, again, I mentioned early, we identified through door knocking that this work needed to be done. And as someone who has moved 21 times in my adult life, I counted recently, so I will say that number. Housing justice is really, really important. And our housing justice circle was really focusing on building and building community power around housing issues. So as I mentioned, the last meeting that we had in March of 2020 at our office, which is still, it's like frozen in time, was a housing justice meeting where we were creating a healthy home standard, where we were really pushing for ensuring that people had the right to homes that were, warm, homes that were free of rodents and bed bugs, and homes that were free of black mold. And we were working and pushing forward on trying to change our inspection process in the city of Kingston, because we always said that some of these apartments, if they were restaurants, they would have been shut down by now. And so we were building that. And we were also building a really amazing plan for intentional living communities, ways that we could work and live together and value everybody's contribution to community and housing. And the housing justice work, to be honest, in the pandemic has been most challenging for us to bring together. We mentioned earlier, all of our issue circles are led by those who are most impacted. And when you are working and when you are struggling in housing, of course, it's really hard to have, clear internet access in a pandemic. And it's a lot different than when folks could come into the office and have meetings and have, food and childcare. So our housing justice circle is one that hasn't met in a while, but there are some amazing, incredible organizations that are out there working on housing. And so, we are going to be having conversations about what that could look like moving forward and what our housing circle could look like. The other two circles I'll just talk about quickly are the community outreach and communication circles. And both of those circles exist to support the work of the issue circles and the work that is happening. So some of you might have received a text here to come here today. There were some incredible human volunteers behind that text. It's not robots. There are real folks that are part of that team and are supporting our outreach efforts and efforts to remind you when to take action, to call your elected official, all of that. So we're definitely looking for more volunteers to join the texting team, because now that we have more workers and we have more things happening, we have more outreach to do. So definitely, reach out. My email is callie@riseupkingston.org. And shout out to Daniel, who's doing the magic banners at the bottom that might pop up in a minute. And the communication circle, is, building our outreach plans, and how we're going to get out into the world on social media. There it is. Thanks, Daniel. And we work very closely. Shout out to Jamie, who is out there managing our social media and has been for almost a year. And we are working and trying to build that circle out to ensure that folks in the community whose skill set is to contribute in, via way of press release or statement or graphic or flyer or anything like that, can participate in that way. So if you're interested in, participating in supporting communications, definitely reach out. Again, same email. And yeah, those two circles, are definitely for folks who, want to support the work and might not be directly impacted. So don't want to, won't be leading the work, but we'll be there to support the work. So those are those two circles. And I know we're going to pass on to Nora. There you are. Hey, Nora.
Hi, everybody. What's going on? So I am the Director of Leadership Development. You all have probably seen me if you've gone to any of our workshops or Facebook Lives. So most recently, we just had our Cahoots workshop, which Lisa mentioned. We have a follow-up to that on the 25th. On the 24th, we have a resume in the time of Corona workshop. That was a 2-part workshop, but if you would like to join that one, just reach out to me and I can send you the recording of the first one. April 2nd, we have Herbalism for Mental Health coming up with Sarah Elizabeth from Wise Woman Spiral. April 8th, we have Embodiment for Organizing with Rusia from Universal Partnership. And what I'm super excited about, May 6th and 20th, we have Trauma Informed Care with Kai Cheng Tom, who is super, super awesome facilitator. So that's a little bit about what we have coming up with our leadership development. If you would like to join our circle, please definitely reach out to me. You can hit me up at tenora@riseupkingston.org. And we're always looking for volunteers who are interested in either facilitating if you've been directly impacted by, injustice, or if you'd like to do some of the back end support work of like curriculum building, any kind of skills like that. We're happy to have you. Or just if you're down to brainstorm for some dope workshop ideas, I'd love to hear from you. And I appreciate all y'all. Thank you.
And the Abundance Circle, you've already heard a little bit about. It is active. I'm just going to run through, the names of all these people who've been great at helping raise money, taking leadership roles. Rachel, Adam, Linda, Julia, Bonnie, Kim, Susan, Jamie, Natasha, and Nick. Thank you. So the Abundance Circle I already described, and we are having the Grassroots Fund Drive. The 15th of June to the 29th of June. And if you are interested in joining as a team member, please reach out to me, Andriana, at riseupkingston.org. And there are other opportunities as well within the Abundance Circle. We're a support circle, so we support the programmatic work and ensure that there are financial resources to allow us to do the work that needs to be done. And so if you have some good, fundraising expertise, knowledge, experience, love for asking for money, please do reach out. And we're excited to be able to bring all the resources into Rise Up Kingston.
Awesome. The board. So the RUC board currently has 5 board members. Over the past year and in the middle of a pandemic, RUC has been focusing on bringing on new folks, which includes new hires, board members, etc. We've also been focusing on our membership form and what the process of becoming a member of RUC looks like. We've also been working on our compensation policy. We believe in a non-hierarchical structure of operating, so working on this policy has been an important focus for us. And you'll be learning more about the board and its structure later on our meeting. And I'm also doing stewardship. So the Stewardship Circle is a place for the RUC community to talk out cultural and political issues, In the Stewardship Circle, this is the place where members of RUC will agree to priorities, make decisions about public stances on controversial issues, and uphold the mission, vision, and values of RUC. And you will, again, be hearing more about the Stewardship Circle later on in our meeting from Justin. And now I'm going to pass this back to Andriana.
Yeah, I think we are hear now from Tyler and Callie about coalition work that we're engaged in. And I think we can also go on to the next slide to see what amazing coalitions are out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Andriana. We can go back to the last slide. So coalitions. I have had the honor of sitting on the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative, which is a grassroots collaborative of direct service organizations, not-for-profits, activists, and community members. Unequal access to healthy food is more than just a crisis in our current moment. It's a social emergency that requires rethinking how our community lives and works together. And while we can agree that everyone needs to eat, we may not always see how different needs call for different solutions. So Rise Up has most definitely been a part of that collaborative. Callie?
Great, yeah. And I just want to jump in and talk about two other coalitions, we're deeply a part of. Kingston Resilience started with a lot of different organizations and individuals coming together and saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to support the community? And how are we going to take care of ourselves? And that, as I said, went off into a few different directions. So I'll start just by talking about the Mutual Aid Network and our commitment to being a part of the Kingston Mutual Aid Network really came from two of our values. The first value was that there are enough resources for everyone, and that together we must fight for solutions that recognize and utilize our interdependence. And that we also believe that the strongest resistance to racialized capitalism comes when groups from all class and race backgrounds show up together in solidarity under the leadership of those most oppressed. My kids are here, of course. So by supporting the development of those systems with time and resources, we are creating a space where people can practice something different. And through this, we're supporting a system shift in our community. And this work can break down these us versus them narratives, help support conflict navigation, and provide a network for breaking out of an economy that's based on individualism and exploitation and into a community that shares resources and supports each other. So we've been involved and engaged in the Mutual Aid Network in many ways. Biggest way organizationally is that we are holding the Mutual Aid Fund, where 100% of all money that goes into the Kingston Mutual Aid Fund goes directly back out into the community, and we're contributing staff time, lots of Andriana's time. Thanks, Andriana, for all of that, in order to make that happen, because it was a need in the community. So we stepped in to do that. And there's lots of ways folks can get involved with many of the subgroups in the Mutual Aid Network. So you can definitely go on Facebook. That's the most updated place to the Kingston NY Mutual Aid Network. And then the other coalition we really want to talk about today is our Ulster County Economic Justice Group, which again came out of Kingston Resilience and shaped and built and was working to try to figure out what is something that's happening here that is not being organized around. Where there isn't a strategy being built to address the problem. And we were really looking at making sure that everyone's basic needs were met. And we were talking about food in the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative, and talking about housing in different places and criminal justice, but looking at our utilities, was something that there wasn't organizing really happening around. So the Ulster County Coalition for Economic Justice is really working to ensure that everyone has access to utilities because they are basic needs, and especially electricity and internet when so many people are working and schooling from home. So the Ulster County Coalition for Economic Justice is calling for extending the shutoff moratorium until the pandemic is over. What that means is an asterisk, but until the pandemic is over, that we want to stop the Central Hudson rate hikes because they are trying to do rate hikes in the middle of a pandemic, and that we are demanding the cancellation of all Spectrum and Central Hudson bills for all Ulster County residents and small businesses retroactively to the beginning of the pandemic, because Spectrum and Central Hudson are worth way too much money. They are continuing to make money off of the backs of our community in order to buy their yachts and their jets. And for the legal purpose, I don't know if they have yachts or jets, but looking at their net worths, I assume that they do. So that's the Economic Justice Coalition. I do not have that website off the top of my head. I didn't write that one down, but we'll definitely share that out as well if you want to join in that work, because we are trying to push and ensure that everyone has their basic needs met and that the wealthy aren't getting richer off of our backs. So that's a quick overview, I guess, of the work that we are doing in our circles and our coalitions. And I think now we're going to pass on to Justin, who's going to do a deep dive into our board and stewardship circles.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, folks. I'm Justin Orshan, he, him pronouns. I'm one of our board circle members and grateful to be present here with all of you. So I'll be sharing a bit more about how our board and stewardship circles support Rise Up's work. And some of you might have an idea of what a board typically does and looks like in organizations. So I think it's helpful to explain how we do it a bit differently here at Rise Up. A little recap to start off. So Tyler earlier shared how we're a worker self-directed nonprofit. And this means that we're structured around collective rather than hierarchical decision-making. And Tenora shared that it's our community members who are the ones setting our priorities. So rather than having a board of directors really governing the organization and voting on decisions that kind of trickle down from the executive director, instead, our priorities come from the ground up. We're grassroots. And we've delegated Rise Up's governance to its workers in support of those community priorities. So because of that, really, the reason that our board and stewardship circles exist is to support Rise Up's work to carry forward the priorities, to support the workers to do what they need to do to keep the work moving forward, and our community members, and to be accountable to our community members. So what's the difference between board and stewardship circles? So let's go to the next slide and we'll see. The stewardship circle is fundamentally about the bigger picture of community values and strategy for Rise Up. And the board circle is fundamentally about Rise Up's internal resilience and operations. So to put it another way, the stewardship circle tends to what Rise Up does, while our board circle tends to how Rise Up works. Next slide. So our board circle, to do a little bit more of a deeper dive in with it, cares for the Rise Up's resilience, and we support Rise Up's financial, administrative, and legal workings, and ensure alignment with Rise Up's practices, or our practices are aligned with our collectively agreed upon values and policies. So essentially, our board is a working board that's tasked with maintaining the inner well-being of Rise Up and directly supporting our workers. And it's a space where people with specific skills and availability help to do the work of building and maintaining our organization. You can think of our board circle like a crew working to maintain a seaworthy ship. It's not deciding where that ship goes or who gets on the ship. That's the work of the Stewardship Circle. So let's talk more about that. Next slide. Our Stewardship Circle is a place where Rise Up wrestles with our big structural, cultural, strategic, political issues. And it's a place where we create processes for engaging with our community, for gathering our community's voice, prioritizing what areas to work on based upon those needs, deciding our collective values, and making stances on controversial issues out to the public. And we also, our Stewardship Circle also determines if Rise Up should expand into new areas of work. Next slide. And we're really excited. We're seeking more board circle members. To give some context, our board and stewardship circles are unique from other circles in that we invite people directly to be a part of them. Membership on the board is determined based upon willingness and ability to do certain types of work that directly support our workers and the internal operations, and of course, with alignment with our values. And so we're putting out a call for some good folks to join our board, more awesome folks. Currently, we're seeking folks who have legal experience and those who have human resources experience. So if you happen to know any good folks with those skills who are really dedicated to the work of liberation, please reach out to us. You could reach out to us at our Facebook page or right there. Thanks, Daniel. info@riseupkingston.org. And beyond the board circle, we're actually also currently expanding our stewardship circle. So next slide. So this has been some time coming, and we're really excited because it's been part of this longer ongoing journey to align ourselves with a worker self-directed model of nonprofit. And we're really excited about this circle forming because what it means is that we have more space for vision and strategy, and so that we're staying accountable to the needs of those experiencing racism, classism, and gender oppression in Kingston, and building the Kingston economy and community that works for all of our needs. The other reason we're really excited about starting up our stewardship circle is because we're inviting a really rad and radical group of community members to be our stewards. So these folks, their membership has been based in their lived experience with Rise Up issues that Rise Up is working on, and a deep engagement with supporting our Rise Up community, as well as the ability to help with these kind of bigger picture vision and strategies for Rise Up's work. And our stewards are just really bringing all of that and more. We're honored and grateful to have their collective community voice and wisdom and power supporting our space. I wish I could announce who those folks are now, but our initial group of 6 stewards is still being finalized by our board circle at the beginning of April. And we're looking to forward to starting that circle up, the stewardship circle, by the end of April. And after that, in alignment with how we do worker self-direction, they'll be self-governing and inviting in more stewards to join that circle in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Quay to talk more about what you get as a member when you join our work. And we can go to the next slide.
Thanks, Justin. Join us. Join our work. Join the things that we are doing for the community. So what you get as a member when you join Rise Up Kingston, you get a membership card. You get a Rise Up Kingston t-shirt, shared decision-making power in the circle that you are in. participation in strategic planning, annual budget development, annual retreat, members-only annual meeting, access to members-only trainings. You get to elect board members. You have the opportunity to guest host Rise Up Radio. You get tons of love and affection from us and discounts on swag. So that pretty much concludes our annual meeting, but we are taking some questions and comments from folks. So if you have any of those, this would be the perfect time to do that. So yeah. Look at our lovely team. All right. So I'm going to be facilitating questions this evening. So once I get some questions coming in from Daniel, then we can get started.
So the questions are listed on the right in the comments. There was only one that I saw a while ago, but I did just post to see if anyone wants to ask questions, but they're in that comments thing on the right-hand side. But the one I saw earliest is from Meg or Adriana, and it was about, have you considered banking with a credit union?
Meg, you're on mute.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Sorry about that. I can take that and then also not really take that. I believe, Callie, can you speak to the choice made early on? Was there I know it's something that we discussed and have discussed at a couple of points. Was it to do with remote availability and kind of the technological back end?
So, I mean, in radical transparency, Ulster Savings had just been involved in a, really big deal issue where they were involved in a study where they had been treating people unfairly, specifically Black and brown folks. And we had really good conversations with them throughout all of that. And they responded really well and made some really good changes. And I think if nothing else, we were like, well, they're not going to do that again. So there definitely wasn't an intentional thing. As we said, Rise Up started very, very quickly. So no intentional conversations around that.
I think we're open to input from any community members or other folks who have suggestions on that front. We have some pretty basic requirements just because we're working from different places and have to coordinate finances from several different areas. But beyond that, I think we'd be open to any information that could help us make further decisions about that.
Awesome. Okay, Clara has a question for us. Says, in the various circles, are there ways people of privilege can help without distracting from the importance of the voices of folks directly impacted?
I'll jump in for a second. The Abundance Circle is looking for members, and the Abundance Circle is primarily people of privilege, and it is a way to be able to support the work that Rise Up Kingston is doing. Contact me, Andriana at riseupkingston.org, or info@riseupkingston if you can't get my name. And I think there's some other ways. Callie can talk about maybe the communications and the community outreach.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say, and anyone could jump in, but most of our issue circles, again, are led by those who are most impacted. And we have, some really down allies and accomplices that are in there to, support with some of the work, help us dig through the data, help us figure out what zoning means and, all of those pieces. And so, that's part of the one-on-one conversation is really trying to figure out where do folks fit into the different circles? Is it, texting? Is it helping with writing a press release? Is it, being support in a different way? Yes, there are many different ways that people of privilege can help. And also, I'll just say progressive stack, even when you're in the space, acknowledging that you hold privilege. And I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts on that one.
Awesome. Okay, Clara, I have a question for us. Says, in the various circles, are there ways people of privilege can help without distracting from the importance of the voices of folks directly impacted?
It
Guess not. All right, great. All right. Next question says, how often do circles meet? I'll say for the board, we meet once a month. We have a lot going on right now, and we were talking about doing every other month, but because of like the compensation policy that we're working on, and all those deeper things that we're diving into, we decided to stay for once a month. So that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, the criminal justice circle, the main circle meets once a month, and then we have sub-circle that meet bi-weekly usually, especially on important topics.
Same thing for leadership development. We meet once a month on the third Wednesday of each month. Although this month we're meeting on the 31st because of a workshop conflict. But yeah, usually the third Wednesdays from 6 to 7:35.
And the abundance, the entire circle meets every other month, and the teams or sub-circles meet every month.
Are those all the circles? Oh my God, it is. Okay. Onion says, could you all share your favorite snacks to keep you nourished? Thanks.
What's up, Onion? Thanks for being here. I appreciate you, yo. I got a lot of favorite snacks. Right now, my diet is a little sensitive, so I like brown rice with a plethora of things on top.
I'm going to say like carrots and hummus will be like my favorite snack and probably the only vegetable that I will eat, in like a week or so, but it's really good. And then I'll have the gummy bears, the Haribo gummy bears, definitely alongside with it.
I've been doing a lot of smoothies just to get it all in one container.
Yeah, I second that. I also do smoothies, and I'm into herbalism, so I always like throwing a bunch of random herbs and roots into the smoothies to keep me mellow.
I've been on a grape kick, so lots of green grapes. Frozen grapes are the best. Freeze them, fire, do it.
Yeah, I've been on a make my own seed crackers kick. So I just made some this morning.
Apples and peanut butter are the go-to in our house. I push carrots and hummus, but apples and peanut butter are what we fall back on in the like vegetable fruit plus pasty nut thing variety.
Onion, thank you for caring about our well-being.
Yeah, that's such a good question. How do we feed the revolution? Apples and peanut butter here too. Rotates every week of other week when I get tired of one.
Okay. Most of these are just comments from folks. Onion says, bless this, all of you, thank you. Someone else says, this was amazing. Thank you so much for all this information. So impressive. What else is there? There's a decent amount of comments. Celebrate Live says that we appreciate you, Ruck. Go ahead, Callie. What were we going to say?
Yeah, I see one that just popped in. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Some of it's a comment, but just in general, are there any additional skill sets that we're interested in? I mean, and maybe I'll start and then anyone else can respond. I think that part of what's really magical about like the work that we're doing here is that like anyone can kind of get in where they fit in. And there's like the folks who like to make the food and the, folks who can help support. This specifically is asking about like software development. I know nothing about software. So like, yes, maybe. I think there was a conversation the other day. We were talking about, do we know anyone that makes apps? I don't know what meeting that was in, one of them. So maybe. But I would say like if you're down for, a fight towards liberation and you have a skill to offer, reach out. Because again, people's participation can be at different levels. So you could be a member and show up, yes, we're hoping regularly, but like you're showing up, you're an anchor, you're committed to like taking on a bigger leadership role. You're an advisor, someone that, either has lived experience or professional experience, but can't necessarily participate regularly. Those are still folks that we could reach out to when we when we need some support. So any skill sets you have, yeah, definitely reach out if you're committed, because and I'll say info@riseupkingston.org. We can get it out to the right person, no matter what circle you're trying to connect with. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I don't know if any other circles have specific desires and needs in this moment.
I would chime in to say that as we grow as a nonprofit, we are subject to a ton of really burdensome reporting and compliance requirements that we are just starting to run into, but managing those can sometimes require technical expertise, and figuring out how to do that may at some point involve software type skills. So I would say specifically technical skills may be useful to us at some point, but also I think the pandemic should have taught us all that we never know when we're going to need some random skill set that doesn't necessarily seem obvious for the work that we do. So I'd second everything Callie said about bringing good intention to the organization and then figuring out how to plug in skill sets later.
Real quick, I'm feeling the desire to say big thanks to the ASL interpreters. I appreciate y'all.
Absolutely.
And to the Spanish language interpreters as well that are doing this on the phone line, because we have a maximum number of people allowed here on StreamYard. And so thank you. And for everyone who helped us support in trying to make this multilingual, more accessible space. Thanks, Tyler, for starting that.
And definitely for everybody that watched.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
appreciate our community.
Yeah. Well, I guess with that, we're going to actually wrap up. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm super thankful for this opportunity to be with RUG, to be involved with my community. I appreciate you all. I appreciate the folks that are watching and that have stayed for the whole hour and a half that we've been on. You all rock. Everyone's amazing. So.
And thanks. Yeah, everyone. Guess this is it. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful day, because it is beautiful out there, and drink some water.
Yes, drink water. Hydrate.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Enjoy the
Be well.
sunshine.